Danilo Tascone, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. Happy to be here.
I'm very excited to do this first episode with you. You're a data engineer, a senior data engineer. You have quite a bit of experience. And today you are working as a contractor
Yes.
for different companies. Please start us off with your background.
Sure. So I've been a data engineer for about 6 years now. Before being a data engineer, I was a QA engineer. That was my first job. Although I didn't last much as a QA engineer, it wasn't my cup of tea. So I basically begged my boss to let me do something else, and I always had been interested in data. Actually, that's what I was focusing on when I was in university. I, created my CV with the idea of studying more data topics, machine learning, data analysis, this kind of things. But at the time, in Southern Italy, there weren't many companies that were doing this. It was kind of booming in the US and possibly in the other part of Europe, but it became something more concrete in also in Southern Italy in a few years later. There is many companies now that do this in the Southern Italy, but at the time there were many opportunities in this field, although I was really, really interested in working on it. So I started as a QA engineer, and then when I realized it wasn't for me, I transitioned to data engineering.
Well, let me ask you this because I actually receive a lot of DMs on LinkedIn from people telling me, oh, I'm a data analyst or I'm doing X job and I want to move into data engineering. How did you make the transition?
So it was kind of messy, because I was looking for ways of, making the transition. Started networking with a data community that was local. I'm also the co-founder of that community. We did some events back then. Also, the company I was hired in also worked in data. I started, picking up some skills, and the context that I already had from working in a company that dealt with data was really, really helpful. I know which tools were used and how we were using the data. So I was exposed to that world on a daily basis. And that was probably the most important thing. Then I started experimenting with the tools myself. I got familiar with it. When I was confident that I had the skills, at least the basics, I asked my boss if I could do either data science or data engineering. And turned out one of the people had left, and so I was allowed to transition to this new role. And I'm grateful to my boss for allowing that still to this day, because that's what helped me to become a data engineer. It's become my career now. So that was a very, very important shift for me.
Um, One of the things I'm wondering is like you made the transition from QA to data engineer, but actually you also told me in university you were working on everything related to data, but also machine learning. So what made you choose data engineering?
Actually, in the beginning, I wanted to be a data scientist. That's what was cool back then. It's always a matter of opportunity with these things. The market was demanding more data engineers already than data scientists at the time. So that's why I ended up being a data engineer. And in hindsight, I think it was a good thing, because data engineering is really, really in demand nowadays, because companies are a bit more mature compared to 10 years ago, and they're realizing that they need a strong foundation in terms of data models and pipelines. A data effort that's more structured and reliable than just duct taping, ETLs written by people who are not engineers. So I think it was a good thing, knowing that most of the work is in building the infrastructure. I think being the data engineer gives you a little bit more opportunities and leverage. It's easier for a data engineer to understand a part of data science and how it fits in the entire system than for a data scientist to learn the system and be exposed to it and possibly become, a lead of the product. I don't think it's impossible, but I find it easier as a data engineer already knowing how the entire platform works and then saying, here's the place where
What would you advise someone on LinkedIn sending you a DM and asking you, "Hey, Danny, I'm a QA and I want to be a data engineer like yourself."
well, first of all, they have to pick up the skills. And the thing is, when you are a data engineer, you already know all the tools, and to which degree you will deepen your understanding each tool in terms to the degree that it helps. I want to learn Spark, and to which degree I should learn Spark, how much should I know about the internals. Same for Airflow, same for SQL. And as a data engineer, you realize that the 20% of knowledge in each tool is enough to build something that brings value. But a guy who's not in the field has no idea how to do that. They think they have to learn all the tools in AWS, thousands of services. Should I build my pipeline and should I set up an EMR cluster? They've got no idea, right? They're basically lost. And there's a ton of free resources online, but you don't know which ones are the right ones. And the fact that we have so many tools in this industry doesn't help either, There's at least 4 ways you can do processing, 4 ways you can do scheduling. So that's the hardest part. For people who are trying to learn data engineer, first of all, I would pick one of the major cloud providers. I would pick AWS because it's just the one with the biggest market share. I would pick one data processing tool, and Spark is an evergreen, of course, so I will learn that. And then I will learn SQL. And one great way of learning SQL is on BigQuery, so they get exposed a little bit to the data warehousing kind of way of doing things. In terms of data processing, that's what I would stick to, and I would focus on just learning the basics of everything. Don't go too deep. And then scheduling, Airflow all the way, of course. If I had to pick one of the great platforms that are emerging these days, like Snowflake or Databricks, I'd pick one, probably Databricks, because you're already learning Spark, and it's also really, really going strong this year. I interviewed in November, December for my next freelancing gigs, and Databricks is all I've been asked about. Databricks, 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 Databricks. Every time. So it was kind of annoying.
Don't go too deep inside the tools. Pick a stack, pick a cloud provider, AWS or Airflow. Go with either a classic Python or PySpark.
Yeah, and build something useful with it. Some portfolio project, something end to end that goes from data ingestion to to dashboards, and that's how you pick up the skills, and then find the person that's closest to you that could give you the opportunity, either your boss, some friend. That's a link.
All right. Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, you were telling us, so you made the transition from QA to data engineer, and how were your first days in the team?
Wasn't too bad. I mean, I already knew the guys because we all worked in the same room, and I had already been experimenting with their tools, so I was kind of familiar also with the way we were doing things. So it was not too new to me. And of course, there's the added pressures of delivering things into production, but yeah, that's part of every job. You build slowly and possibly work on things that are not mission critical, and when you become more hands-on, that's when you start trying more risky stuff.
Okay, can you tell us a bit about what the company was doing and the type of work you were doing inside the company?
Sure. Actually, my first company was a product company. They were building a data management platform for customers in, media, broadcasters, people in general who had an audience, an online audience. They had websites with many visitors, and they had an audience, and they want to find a way to monetize it. So track the users, segment the audience, figure out what these people were doing and why, and what they were interested in, and then doing marketing campaigns and on those segments. That was basically the main idea, and we offered the technology on that. Although before actually working on the company product, I was a small consulting gig, which was actually my first job and my first opportunity to do some production grade data engineering. And it was for a smaller client. And we built a data platform on Azure Data Factory and signups. We did the classic data lake thing. We got the data from the operational systems, brought it into the data lake, and started writing the classic workflows for data. One was a case of master data management. We wanted to build an inventory of all physical stores that this company could track. Another one was an ETL that would basically help them calculate some metrics on their funnels, because they had an app with many steps, and they wanted to figure out at which stage the customer was living. So these were the two main use cases, apart from the general setup of the platform. That was my first project. It was quite hard, but the customer was quite happy. So it was the kind of project where you're super stressed, but also growing a lot, so it's worth it. When we finished that, I went back to the internal team and started writing the code on the internal platform too.
So the work was done for a specific customer, and then you went back to the internal team. So you were detached for a bit, and then you
Yep.
came back. Oh, so that's a lot of pressure for your first project, actually.
Yeah. I had already done internal workflows in the company for monitoring purposes. So I had already deployed some Spark jobs and some orchestrated workflows. So it's not like I hadn't done anything. But that was the first experience where I had the full pressure of delivering something. No, it was really great, because it was like going from 0 to 100 all of a sudden was kind of hard. I did probably a year of growth in 6 months. In the end, all good, I guess.
I remember I was in a similar situation. I was working until 10 p.m. Did you work overtime? Did you work late, or did you just work the normal working hours?
Kind of normal working hours, but I got sick after a few weeks of grinding because I was doing things so fast. I was too stressed and couldn't handle it, basically, and I had to take a couple of days off, reset, and figure out, okay, slow down, world is not falling, and you can do it. There's going to be mistakes. Basically, you have to figure out a way of describing to yourself the situation in a way that doesn't make it a catastrophe, because it never is. We're not sending rockets to the moon. That's one of the things that we have to realize. It's okay to make mistakes as long as we're also rectifying them, and it's productive to realize that you're not as under pressure as you think.
Especially because in your case, what the pressure did to you is that you had to take some days off because a little bit of burnout over there. I think after this, you changed companies, right?
Yep.
So were there any reason why you decided to change?
Well, money, of course. Well, not only that, but that's always a big reason. Not always, but often. And also because I wanted to work on tools and technologies that were kind of more new and that would make me more marketable. Unfortunately, there's this thing where we get hired for tools, and tools are important, but not the most important thing. But if you don't have the tools in your CV, you're not gonna get hired. So you gotta have the tools, and it's kind of annoying. And one of the reasons that I moved was because I wanted to work on something that I could be more proud of, and that I could also sell to the external world, And I moved to this company, and it was really great because I get to do some engineering that I'm really proud of, with people that were really great at what they were doing, and the sole fact of being with those people made me grow a lot. So it wasn't just about the tools, but building something with people who actually know what they're doing at a scale and a level that that makes it valuable. to the customers.
So basically, you change companies. Yeah, there was money, but also the new company had actually better software practices inside their data team.
So the major difference was in, of course, the best practices. In the second company, we were doing TDD, BDD to a certain.
Can you explain TDD and BDD for those who don't understand?
Sure. So TDD stands for test-driven development, and BDD stands for behavior-driven development. What is it in a nutshell? There's unit tests where you test your functionalities. In TDD, you write the tests before the implementation, and it's not that you just have a test first approach, but the thing is that you explore the design of your components in the software with a test first approach. So you write the test, then you write a boilerplate of the functionality. You also write the functionality in full. And it's an iterative process, and the fact that you're writing the test first, it forces you to build software that's modular, because if it's testable, it's got to be modular. So it shapes the software in a way that it's easier to maintain over time, and that's why it's called test-driven development. You write the test first, and the testing guides also the design of the software.
I remember actually at the beginning of my career, people were talking a lot about TDD in the Python community, especially, but it's something I have yet to see in the implementation. So, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and it's not like we were doing perfect or in a textbook manner. Things always get messy in the real world, but the sole fact that everything is tested and the testing is affecting how you design your software, even though it's not perfect, is already a huge advantage in how you design things. And BDD is kind of an extension to that, where you describe behaviors. So BDD works like this: you have a text file with a we call it gherkin. You write the test case in plain language, and the test case is structured. You have a given section, a when section, and a then section. In the given, you explain the preconditions of the test. In the when, you write the action that's got to be performed, and in the then section, you explain what's the expected result. And then you have code that matches that text with regular expressions, and to each of the section corresponds some code that will get executed. So for a data use case, what happens is, given this data, when you process it with this function, this is the expect data that should come out. And you can test all your ETLs locally with this kind of mock data. And this forces you to separate the business logic from the architectural code of your pipelines. And each function is tested. All the functions that are part of a workflow are tested together on mock data. So you're basically testing all your functionalities because they go into production. You almost have a guarantee that the code is never going to break, because your pipelines are tested from the beginning to the end. The only thing that can break in a subsequent phase is the code. And I had read about these things, but never tested them in productions. Sometimes I was even told, oh, those are things that you just read them in books, you never do them in real life. And I was like, no, that's not so true. I know there are companies that are doing it. And then I managed to find one that actually did. So that was amazing. I stayed with them for more than 3 years. I think something worth mentioning that is that nowadays we hear a lot about data as a product and all these new organizational patterns, data mesh and so on. But this particular company I was working for, they were selling data. So data was the product. And as a company that was building a product, we had to have all the best practices to ship software, basically. So that's why we were doing TDD and BDD. We had, CI/CD pipelines and release processes, all these things. So we were already treating data as a product, and it was kind of the obvious way to do things. Nowadays, you hear about data products, and it's like, yep, that's the way.
Yeah, it's a bit like in the data space, I feel we are a bit behind on some of the best software practices. Like I can remember at some point they were not even a product owner or a project manager for the data team. They were directly interacting with the different stakeholders. Okay, very interesting. Thank you for sharing this.
And then we can go to the last experience. It was my first pure freelancing project where I got hired with a fixed.
I have to stop you. So you went from this company to freelancing. So my question will be obviously, when did you think about freelancing and why did you make the switch?
That's a good question. Well, it's I've always been, in terms of attitude, someone that likes novelty and trying new things, and I've always had the idea of building something of my own and be where I want to be, to pick the skills that I want and not just wait for magic to happen where I'm currently working. And that was probably the reason how I decided to go freelancing, because it seems like the natural next step to having my own company. And it kind of puts you on the spot because you have to have the pulse of the market, figure out what's worth investing in terms of skills and how you use your time. You start thinking about networking and building connections. It's a bit more entrepreneurial, and hopefully this will prepare me for having my own consultancy maybe, or in general becoming an entrepreneur.
Okay, great, great. So you have a very entrepreneurial spirit, which is not everyone that does, especially in our field. Some people just like to write code.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
how did you find this opportunity then?
Actually, I had been thinking about it a while, but I was always undecided. Then a recruiter reached out with an opportunity and paid well and seemed an interesting one. I was in a moment of my career where I needed a change, and said, why not? Let's try. And then I landed the interview with the engineering manager and landed the position and worked with them for about 11 months until the completion of the project.
So basically, you did one interview to get the position for a contracted gig with the company. And can you
Yeah,
tell us about the project itself? Why were they looking for someone and what was the project about?
yeah. So it was a big migration project. Basically, this company had to move from central infrastructure for data processing to basically bring home all those capabilities and not depend on the central infrastructure anymore. So it was a big migration project, basically. And I had the task with a few other people to migrate the pipeline that did the early processing of the data, and it was like a mission critical pipeline. Everything else depended on this.
Was the company part of the bigger company and branching out? What is the central infrastructure? I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah, sure. So this company is a big group, and there's a few sub companies within it. And for the ingestion part of the data, they all share the central infrastructure, which was basically Kafka and Spark streaming, and a few libraries and repository for the early processing of the data. So all companies use this shared infrastructure. And it was something that had been built over 10 years. It was very structured because it had to handle data from multiple companies and a lot of people working on it. And since they had to basically build their own, the migration was literally rebuilding all this part from ingestion to early processing and ending up with the same data sets that were there before. And we had to ensure, of course, the data was really the same. We had we had a number of metrics on which we were allowed only 1% discrepancy, and that's what made it really stressful, added to the fact that we had a very tight deadline. So the migration project was rebuilding it in a simplified way, because for just one company, not 10 companies, and then ensuring that the data stayed the same, almost exactly the same.
Okay, very interesting. I think I want to come back to something you said is that you have on a couple KPIs a 1% discrepancy allowed, not much than that. And I think it's something that people don't really realize, because in LinkedIn or in all these places, people are talking about data quality, but this on a streaming workload, having a 1% discrepancy, can you just try to explain to us, not in technical terms, but just like the sheer complexity of accomplishing that?
Yeah, yeah. So there were a few metrics like daily active users, leads, contacts, number of sessions. There were 10 of them. I don't remember all of them. X and Y matters. So let's start with why it matters. People are using the data for marketing campaigns and also tracking the marketing campaigns. And if the data is not the same anymore, and maybe you have a discrepancy of 3%, and it affects the conversion rate of how you measure the campaign. Basically, the guys who are using are not able to figure out whether their campaign is working well or not, because if your true conversion rate is 2%, and the data tracking it shifts by 3%, you got minus 1%, and you think, we either up our campaign and the campaign was total trash, or the data guys are the ones responsible for showing the wrong numbers. So that's why you're allowed 1%, so the numbers must be right, otherwise it defies the point of having data capabilities. Why it's hard? Because so the data comes from operational systems. It's usually, web apps, iOS apps, Android apps, and these are all sending the data to the Kafka topic. There's a microservice, that receives the data. It's in JSON format, and the microservice is scaled and pushes it to the Kafka topics. And as I said, there's a lot of moving pieces, and also those operational systems had to move to the new infrastructure, and they literally have hard-coded URLs to the old infrastructure. So a lot of the complexity in migrating this is not just building the pipeline, but making sure that everybody who's sending the data is also sending it to the new infrastructure. And it's kind of an open heart surgery, because the data must still go to the old system, and the traffic has to get mirrored to the new system. And this is very delicate, because if you by mistake, when enabling the new pipeline, you break the old one, and the old services are not working anymore while you're still in the middle of the migration, someone's gonna complain, So you have to do the open heart surgery and make sure everything works because you switch to the new system. And then you have the complexity of the pipeline per se. You have to write all the transformation the same as before, and we unit tested the transformation so that at least locally we were sure that we were developing them the same as before and that they produce the same result. And then, as I said, there was the complexity of all these moving pieces. And in the end, we only had 2 bugs in the new pipeline because we had unit tested everything. The old functions that were processing the code were written in a custom language. So we built our repository in a way that would compile the functions in the old language, apply it to the data, do the same with our new functions, apply it to the data, and compare the results. So all the transformation were already unit tested, and this saved a ton of time. This is like paramount. And in the end, we only had 2 bugs on the overall pipeline, and all the discrepancies were attributable to the systems that were pointing to the old infrastructure and not the new one. And when I got to talk with a lot of people in all the teams that were handling all those operational systems, and when we got them to change what they had to change, the numbers started to fit, and the UAT lasted quite a while. It lasted more than a month, and literally every day I was looking at the data. I had a notebook with all the checks, running on the daily data, and took a while, and a lot of cross-team communication, and also getting the help of the data analyst to figure out, to get some more business context on the data. But in the end, we made it. It was a tough project, but also, very rewarding and very real world stuff,
And very complex actually. And you told me, by the way, that your client personally said thank you because he thought the project was next to impossible, but you made it happen.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It was quite amazing. And I got thanked many times. Of course, I was not the only person working on the project, but in the last part of the project, I was the main dev. So I had a lot of weight on me, and yeah, it was considered kind of impossible because the deadline was really, 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 really tight. We had to finish it by November, and we started on February, I think. You might think that all those months are a lot, but it's not just the coding part, it's a validation part and the productionizing part. And at the same time, all the other teams are migrating too. So, it's there's added complexity from the fact that everyone is busy and they're migrating their own components too, and you don't always get the developer time from someone else where when you need it.
After this, actually, if I remember correctly, that's when you did your big search because now that you've done this first experience as a contractor, you decided that you want to stay a contractor and with a particular specificity that is you want it to be fully remote and you wanted to consult with anyone in Europe or in the world. So, can you talk to us about how did your search for your new contract went and what you learned about the market in Europe during your search?
Sure. So where do I start? I spent a couple of months interviewing and try to figure out ways of, get in front of people because nowadays, LinkedIn is kind of becoming possible. If you apply to jobs on LinkedIn, whether, it's contracting jobs or even stable jobs, most of the times you don't even get an answer, or if you get it, it's after 2 months and then it's a no. And it's all based on your CV, which is kind of the crazy thing, And it took a while. And in the end, the thing that worked for me was the LinkedIn SEO. I watched a video on YouTube that advised to have a coherent LinkedIn profile with all the right keywords. I put freelance everywhere in the about section, in the title, in the experience section, so it's coherent and kind of the algo likes it. And also wrote all the important keywords in my title, Spark, Airflow, BigQuery, AWS, blah, blah, blah. And also in the about section. And after I did this, after a few weeks, recruiters started to reach out, which was kind of fascinating, because I was already getting some DMs, but not enough, and not the one I wanted. And as soon as my LinkedIn profile was on point, I started getting people writing to me. I started getting interviews. I started talking actually to real people, instead of just sending random CVs to job ads that don't work basically because they never reach out. And that was really good. Yeah, I had a number of interviewing processes, and then I managed to land my next gig, which started on January.
The LinkedIn SEO, this is, I mean, I thought LinkedIn was just you put your about section and then your job, your list of the project you did before, and then you just match you based on your job title or something. But there's a real SEO inside LinkedIn, basically. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, because the system is broken for recruiters too. They get hundreds of CVs and they have to use an ADS. So a lot of recruiters are just reaching out on DMs. And the way they do it is by typing freelance data engineer on the search bar. And the results are going to depend on what's on your LinkedIn page. So I had never thought about it, to be honest. That YouTube video kind of enlightened me, and I was like, okay, let's try this. Maybe it's worth it, and it was worth it.
All right. And I think you made a very interesting point, which is the system is also broken for recruiters because on the other side, the people looking for jobs or contracts are thinking, oh, the system is just for me. But What you're saying is like the recruiters also are getting flooded with applicants that are not qualified for the job. So they are trying to reach out directly using the search bar. And if you optimize your profile for that search bar in LinkedIn, basically you are going to appear in the first 10 or 100 or something. So it's very interesting. And there's also this point you made in the pre-call of the state of the data engineering market in Europe. Would you like to expand on this, please?
Sure. So having interviewed a lot and, was kind of under the trenches for a couple of months, I got a pulse of the market a little bit, and, it was nice because, of course you read a lot of hype on LinkedIn, and you realize something's happening, but when you see it yourself, it's kind of different. The investments on AI are real and not just from the big companies. I think everyone is kind of acting out of FOMO nowadays. Everyone want to do AI. Everyone wants to do data and analytics. And the companies that were kind of behind are now like full on developing this capability, either developing them or improving or already what they have. Databricks growth is real. It's the single most asked technology from what I've seen. Like 4 jobs out of 5 were about Databricks. And one thing I'm seeing, at least for contractors, is that they're always looking for something specific. I had one recruiter telling me, if you don't have Databricks, we're not going with the conversation. Sorry. So that's how bad it is, which is annoying. But in general, it's I feel like it's good because you know if there's investments in AI, there's going to be investing in general data capabilities and structured efforts, and that's where data engineers and data architects come in. So it's more work for us. So I see there's a lot of demand and also pressure for getting things done and realize value from these data capabilities sooner than later.
There's a lot of hype, but also the thing with in the data space, we are closely linked with the AI because we're working with AI engineers, data scientists, and if they want data, they have to go through the data engineers. You have to have a data architect looking how we're gonna connect all these systems and talking with the business. You gotta have all these, basically a full data team. Maybe you want to analyze the data with a data analyst. So it makes sense that all the investment in AI, when the companies are doing the projects while they are hiring data engineers like yourself, they are hiring data analysts, they are hiring all this full data team, which in your opinion, what is the next step?
Yeah. So there's plenty of data engineers out there, and the market is certainly more mature than 10 years ago in a way. I think the remaining problem is not a technical problem because the platforms are there, the skills are there, the tools are there. I think it's more an organizational problem that on that regard, I think most companies are really immature. Um, I've been reading a lot about data strategy lately because I started getting curious about this after a few years of becoming a data engineer and realizing that every time there was something wrong, it was never the technology, it was always people and process. Teams that are not communicating correctly, process that's not there, things left to luck and personal activity instead of a structured flow. And so that's where I started reading about data strategy and governance, all these kind of things. And I think what companies need to really invest, and it's going to be really, really hard, is in changing their operating models, because data is not a function like finance or sales. Data is spread across the business. It's cross-functional, across team endeavor, and it originates from multiple systems. So the old way of organizing things doesn't work in the new world of data. And you need to have process that are aware of how the data originates, who owns it, who processes it, who uses it. You have to think about adoption. You have to think, having the data stewards that really care about the data. All these things have to fit together in a way that is not blind to how businesses should work with data. You do the data police and expect everything to work. It doesn't work. It's not how people work. It's not how systems work. And this is complex because it's organizational, and organizational means there's politics involved. And where there's politics, there's friction, and that's why this is hard to fix. And I think it's still going to take a while for companies to figure out how to make this work. And the only way I've seen this work is reactive. Well, first you realize you have a big problem. Your company is calculating the revenue in the wrong way, and you're a public company, so that's a big screw up, and people are risking their jobs. That's when they hire the data, the CDO, and can you please fix this? And what the CDO is gonna do in those cases, like fixing the mess in all the departments and doing what nobody wanted to do in the previous 10 years. So this takes time, and yeah, we're not there yet, I think.
I agree with you that most of the time, I think I will say after 1 year in the field, coding is not the issue. Like you can still write bad code, but coding is not the issue. The issue is the people. It's not like a software engineering team where it's only the project manager or product owner that is talking to the business. No, in a data team, everybody is talking to the business. So I guess change is hard to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree.
Danilo, is there something we should have talked about and we didn't?
I guess I can mention a small project of mine, that I'm currently working on. I'm currently building a community of data content creators and professionals. The idea is that if you're a content creator, it can get lonely at times, and the LinkedIn algo is not always on your side. And what I'm trying to do is get people who have something to say about data, people who have thought about it, people that actually know how to create data and are aware of the many challenges that arise when you're trying to impact the business with the use of data. I'm trying to put these people together, and you know, when you put people together like that, things happens, and as I said, it's mainly content creators, but it's people that can think about these problems. So in this effort, as I said, we don't have to do it alone. It's better to do as a group to support each other. So that's why I'm creating this group, and hope something good is coming out of it.
And I have to mention as a disclaimer, I'm inside the community and it's going great. So anyone who wants to join, please contact Danilo. Danilo, how can the people get a hold of you?
I think LinkedIn is the best. You can write to me, do a connection request, and we can have a chat.
Okay, great. Danilo Tascone, thank you for joining the podcast today.
Thank you, George, for inviting me and for wanting to chat with me. Thank you.